What's up peeps, how's it going? Toofty here, and today we're dealing with heavies. As always, these tips are from the perspective of a Demoman, but I'm hoping some of these will apply to some other classes too. And of course, you heavies out there, you might want to watch this and be like, okay, so that's how they're interesting. I'm going to stop doing that thing. They can't do that thing, alright? Tactics. Anyway, before we jump in, just wanted to say a very quick thank you to Murdoch the Great for his items he gave me. I especially love the scarf, and my sniper's looking really cool, and those game glasses. I mean, now I can finally look like Harry Potter. Don't know if you're trying to tell me something. Anyway, thanks a lot, and let's jump straight in. I mean, this tip applies particularly well to the Demoman, who of course has the projectiles which kind of travel in an arc. And so by using that arc and using kind of corners or obstacles in the map, you can completely avoid any damage from the heavy whilst continuing to apply damage to them. The thing I most commonly tend to use to achieve this is just simply corners of the map or walls. You can also use obstacles as well. But in this example here, we're on Frontier. Suddenly I noticed this heavy under here with he looks like he's got a crit screeg and obviously being pocketed by a medic. So what I'm going to do is, because he's in this little room, this can work perfectly to my favour. I can start applying these sticky bombs down right at the corner, and if I feel that he's a threat, I can just sort of work my way around to make sure I'm never in his line of sight for too long. And when the sticky bombs run out, I flick over to the pipes and I'm able to finish them off fairly easily. And as I mentioned before, there are kind of loads of objects you can use as cover, not just kind of corners of the map. And one thing I particularly like using is actually using the car on payload maps. I play quite a lot of payload, so I find myself doing this quite a lot. Here's another example that kind of shows exactly how well that can work. We're on Badwater. I'm just kind of retreating through the enemy lines here, and I didn't realise there was a heavy right there, so I'm in trouble. At this range, with my low health, he could easily just finish me off. So what I'm going to do is quickly crouch behind the cart. It seems ridiculous, but I'm able to make sure the cart is always in between me and the heavy, using my stickies on the other side of the cart, deal out a little bit of damage, and eventually he ends up retreating, and I'm able to escape with my life. So the second thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was the idea of catching heavies unaware and what you should do in that situation. Obviously, you know, it's always ideal to catch an opponent unaware if you can. That's not often up to you, but if you do find yourself with that little advantage over a heavy where you've caught them unaware, as a demo, just kind of make sure you get like a few more sticky bombs down than you normally would, and only draw attention to yourself by dealing out that damage as late as you possibly can. So yeah, the same thing applies to traps too. Obviously, as a Demoman, you may be setting down a sticky trap in preparation for an enemy coming in this direction, and if you're doing so for a heavy, just make sure you get a couple more stickies down than you might normally need, because obviously a heavy, especially heavies with a pocket medic who are buffed, they take an awful lot of damage, so you really want to make sure you get a huge amount of damage done very quickly, not over time, because especially if they're being healed, it just won't be enough to finish them off. In this example here we're on Dust Bowl, an awesome map which I play far too little of. I notice in the corner of my eye these bullets flying past in this corridor, and there's clearly a heavy coming down here, and I'm just going to try and put a trap up, put as many down as I can before he comes around. I'm using the cover of the corner to keep myself out of the line of sight, and I'm finishing him off with a couple of pipes, and fortunately I'm lucky enough to get a crit to finish him off. So obviously when the heavy's spun up, he's a massive threat to you, and if he's running along, you have that second or two advantage over him as he has to react and then spin his gun up. So one technique I have used once or twice, and I'm really glad I found an example of this, is the idea of feigning a retreat, so you can actually get the heavy to chase after you, and then you can turn around and use that precious extra 1 or 2 seconds to take him out. On this example here, we're on Gorge. I come around this corner and I notice there's a heavy just behind these boxes. I'm keeping the boxes in between us. I'm trying to apply some damage. I'm not doing a very good job of it. So as he comes into me, I kind of run away, feign the retreat, and luckily this guy decides to try and chase after me, and as he does so, I'm able to come back to him and put some stickies down, and I feel a little bit safer as I take him out. So my playstyle evolves quite heavily around the sticky bombs, and I kind of use my pipes as a secondary. Now the main reason I personally don't use pipes as often as my stickies is simply because the damage isn't quite as reliable. If you miss close up, then that's 0 damage. Whereas with the sticky bomb, there's not really such thing as missing. It's going to stick on something, and as long as that thing's near them, you'll apply a little bit of damage. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about here was the idea that when you are facing a heavy, as there's such a fat round target, no offense Hoovies, it is a little bit easier to hit them with the pipes, and so a little bit more reliable. And therefore, it's worth bearing this in mind as you're engaging them. It tends to take only 3 or 4 pipes to take them out, so you can do it fairly quickly, and it's also good practice as well. In this example, we're on Dust Bowl again, defending this spawn exit. As my sticky bombs run out, I switch over to the pipes and I'm able to quite happily get those kind of medium range pipes onto him and finish this heavy off. So if any of you guys haven't heard the phrase sticky sniping, it's basically when you charge up a sticky bomb and throw it, a little bit further across the map than you do normally. Obviously it's slightly harder to hit the target, but it's a really useful tool to have. And I'm thinking about doing a whole episode on sticky sniping. But anyway, yeah, so the heavy does a huge amount of damage close up. So as an alternative to avoiding line of sight, you can just try and keep your distance from him, and that kind of has a similar effect. The damage he does to you is kind of negligible. It won't be a huge worry to you, and you can survive it for a fair amount of time. So yeah, in this example, I'm on Powerhouse and I'm coming into their area here, and I notice this heavy, he's kind of across the room, and from this distance, I'm kind of fairly comfortable taking a little bit of damage from him. I'm obviously going to try and use this box as cover, but as I do so, I'm just going to throw stickies across the room. I only have to charge them up to about 1/3 of the way of my meter, and I'm able to get it over to him, and I'm able to finish him off quite comfortably without taking too much damage myself. So we kind of talked a bit about this already, but there are other things to look out for that mean the heavy is vulnerable. Aside from them just being simply unaware that you're there, getting the drop on them, it's often also worth looking out for the mark of death, which you often see on heavies a little bit back from the front line. They're using the gloves of running urgently. If you see that, try and get in there quickly. Another example here on Gold Rush, I kind of noticed this heavy, he starts to retreat and he's also calling for medic, so I think he's probably a great target to kind of go for. And sure enough, he starts eating a sandwich right in the middle of the battlefield, so I'm able to apply some damage to him and make sure he's pushed all the way back to spawn. That's another good example. If you see a heavy eating a sandwich, obviously completely vulnerable. You don't see that too often. They like to do that in private, but something to look out for nevertheless. So I thought it'd be worth mentioning when it's a good idea to actually just retreat and get the fudge out of there. And that's basically if you find yourself face to face, very close range with a heavy and they're already spun up. In that case, you're not gonna live very long and you just need to get the hell out of there basically. Their damage is always bound to outdo you at close range. Even if you hit every single pipe, you're just not gonna survive very long. So in this situation, and even sometimes when they are not spun up and they just, they're about to, and maybe you're in a small corridor or what have you, sometimes it's best just to get out of there and save yourself for another day. In this example, we're defending on Dust Bowl. I'm spamming around this corner and then suddenly I notice there's a heavy and medic duo coming right at me. They may nearly have an Uber, the heavy's bound to be buffed. Obviously that Demo Knight's a lot braver than I, but yeah, I'm just going to head back, kind of retreat to the next corner along, and I'm feeling a lot safer here. I've got lots of cover I can use. Another quick example here, just thought it was interesting. I was on Frontier and I was defending, and out of nowhere this heavy appears right in front of me. At this range and in this position, if I stick around I'm gonna die. So in this scenario I actually decided just to drop off this ledge. It's the quickest way to get out of there, and that way I've taken a bit of damage, but I'm still alive. There's a bit of health down here and I can carry on my way. So I just thought I'd finish off with a really important tip for you guys. It's about when you're dealing with Hoovies. Now, these guys can be ruthless. They look innocent, they look lovely, but just be very careful. I would recommend approaching slowly, being gentle, and try not to aggravate them. Their cute little faces don't tell the full story. On this example here, I'm on Turbine. I come around this corner and I was lucky enough to spot a really rare Hoovie at close range, but I made the fatal mistake of shooting a pipe at his face. And unfortunately, that's it. He was triggered. He was coming at me, bro. I tried to calm him down, but it ended in tears for me. So an important lesson learned for all of us. So that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed that. We proper dealt with those heavies, didn't we? Yeah boys. Alright, yeah. I hope you found some of this useful. Let me know who we should deal with next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.